Good afternoon, gentlemen. Welcome to Stonegate Fellowship. We're so glad you're here. My name's Kyle. A little pregame, maybe three pregame affirmations or thank you. Well, first of all, I'd like to thank our constable, David Kreiner. He's right there. Raise your hand, sir. Mr. Kreiner, thank you for feeding me today. Thank you for feeding all of us, but God bless you for that. Yay. I want to say thank you to Gary Haskell and the good people at Dickey's Barbecue. Gary's a valuable attender here at the church in Men's Morning Bible Study, and his crew did a great job. They have all the restaurants, in Midland and Odessa, so good job. You guys ate like men. I watched you, so that's a good thing. The other thing, I just wanted to take a moment, and third thing, I wanted to say thank you to John Harvey Slocum. Do you guys know John Harvey? So let me tell you a quick story here. He's involved in Men's Morning Bible Study, and he's in several of our small groups. And one morning, I walk into Bible study, and I look, and I see the legend, Coach R.C. Slocum, sitting in this Bible study. And then I see John Harvey sitting next to him. And I went, Slocum. There must be something to this. And so several have asked, how'd you get Coach Slocum to come and talk to Men's Morning Bible Study, lunchtime edition? And I just said, it's kind of like who you know. And around Thanksgiving, I said, John, do you think you could get your dad to maybe come talk to the boys? And so that's how the coach is here, and we are more than delighted that he is here. I'm glad you're here. It's going to be a good time together today. I wanted to introduce our first guest today. Our first speaker is Taylor Potts, and I met Taylor several months ago and just immediately fell in love with him. The name may be familiar because he played quarterback just north 140 miles at the Texas Tech University. He was a Red Raider. Came to school in 2006, redshirted his first year, was quarterback for the Red Raiders in 7, 8, 9, and 10. I got some great stats here. Did you know that he attempted 1,106? Did you know? 1,106 passes, completed 733 of them for a 66.3 completion percentage. He threw for 62 touchdowns with only 25 interceptions, 7,835 yards throwing the rock up there in Lubbock and other places. Gentlemen, that's 4.5 miles of completions. I mean, I could do that probably. No, probably couldn't. But anyways, that's pretty impressive. Had some time with the St. Louis Rams and the San Diego Chargers, and as impressive as all of that is, and it is, I think I'm most impressed with him as a man. It's all about faith for him, and you'll hear his story. It's all about family, and those two kind of just go hand in hand. And I was thinking, just because I'm a preacher, I need another F. It's all about future for him. He plans to live and raise his family in this area that we call home in West Texas, and I'm just delighted for his kind of character and integrity. Gentlemen, would you welcome our first speaker today, Taylor Potts.
Thanks, Kyle. There's a beard under there somewhere. I know most of you Aggies, while y'all were clapping because I had 25 interceptions. I know you people. I get it. which is, good gosh, that's way too high. I want to assume most of them weren't my fault, but yeah, they probably were. I'm going to give you a date. I don't want everybody to be too serious, all right? So everybody, don't expect too much, okay? So this should be a pretty lighthearted, fun event. I mean, we've got a what used to be called legend. That term has now changed, but we've got just an amazing man, coach, speaker coming in behind. So I want you guys to be excited. This is not going to be a very deep, concerning talk by any means, but I want to share something about me, certainly my family, a little bit of my background, and then kind of some things I see out in front of me now, some challenges from friends, challenges from the accountability partners that I get challenged in my daily life. I'll give you a date to think about, and we'll come back to it a little bit later, but December 21st, 2014 at 8 o'clock in the morning, my father-in-law would be proud, and he would certainly appreciate that date. So I'll leave that with you, and we'll reference that throughout, and I'll come back to that. But December 21st, 2014 at 8 o'clock in the morning. Most of you know and have made comments in the last few weeks, as of most frequently out there in the lobby, but most of you recognize me because I usually carry around a beard. I go through these weird times where I wake up one morning. Now, it doesn't happen overnight, but I'll wake up and I'll realize, man, I need to be carrying around a beard. What am I doing looking baby-faced? And then I'll wake up a few months later and realize, I look awful. This is terrible. I got to shave this off. And then so I present to you today the 14-year-old Taylor today with this kind of face. I do want to write a book, though. I've got a great title and a great idea for a book called Oh, the Beards You'll Grow. So if anybody knows, it'd be a children's book. I think we could illustrate it really well. So if anybody knows a publisher, let me know, because I'd love to get that thing going. I think it'd do well. And also, I was asked to kind of approach men in this room today as if, kind of imagine a locker room scenario. Well, there's a couple women here, so that's absolutely not going to happen today. So I've got that speech planned right here, and that's not going to happen. So, and I've only been given about 10 minutes or so before we listen to one of the greatest. And clearly Kyle has never been to one of our life groups, Eric, because he would know it takes me about 2 to 3 hours to put one thought together. So I'll try to get some things out, just bear with me as we kind of try to work through this. But I'm honored to be here in front of you today. I'm honored that you guys carve out time to make this a point in your day. Everyone's busy, I get it. Everyone has busy schedules, but I'm honored to see faces here, see friendly faces, and it's a pleasure and an honor to be in front of you and have this opportunity, so thank you, Kyle. My family, my wife, Erin, and I have 2 kids. Erin is a great sister, a great daughter, a wonderful wife, a loving friend who has a heart for others, cares about people deeply, world-class athlete, amazing cycle instructor, and I'm convinced now she could beat Lance Armstrong, a doped-up Lance Armstrong at that, on a bike. I mean, if you want to know, just go challenge her, take one of her classes. She's incredibly devoted, committed, focused. It's really inspiring to watch her work and be committed to things, to be committed to her husband, to be committed to her children. And the schedule that she carries and the balance that she puts together is amazing. It's motivating, quite honestly. We have 2 kids. We've been blessed with twins. Most of the time it's a blessing, but we've been blessed with twins. They're 3 now, son and a daughter, Nolan and Ryan. So let that sit with you for a minute. But that, people asked, did it happen by accident? Well, she picked Ryan first, so then the door was wide open. We had to take that opportunity. You cannot pass that up, right? So we've lived here about 5 years. Kyle's right, man. We have every intention of calling this place home. Even if it's not home tomorrow, we're certainly going to invest in it and treat it as such, because that's the environment. That's what I want for my kids. I want them to grow up us treating everywhere at home, and I don't want our kids to always think that this is just a stopping point. I want to create a home for them and my wife and for myself too, but I want to really take every opportunity that I can to invest in the people here, because there's great people that reside here, without a doubt. I fully anticipate that you're going to leave here charged up, ready to run through a wall after you hear Coach Slocum speak, without a doubt. So thank you again. Kyle referred to him as a legend. These type of people are not referred to legends anymore. Coach Slocum is now more commonly referred to as a GOAT. Some of you don't know what that means. That's the greatest of all time, or we can represent that with a single emoji. And if you don't know what that is, we'll save that for later. That's too much detail to go into. But Coach can be referred to as the GOAT. But it's great. I didn't realize that Red Raiders outnumbered Aggies by 30-1. I see this is great that we had all these Red Raiders show up today, without a doubt. And I want to take this time, if you've got any good Aggie jokes, go ahead and share. I mean, we've got an hour. We can go ahead and start passing the mic around and share any good Aggie jokes. But like any good Raider, I doubt anybody jumps on that opportunity. I mean, it's hard to pass that up. But it's funny. You've got people from all kinds of schools. The college culture, the college fan culture, they're called fans for a reason, because they're fanatics. Man, they're crazy. So I'll share with you a funny story. When we first moved to Midland, I was working, and a gentleman who has now become a real mentor of mine invited me to lunch one day and said, and this was in the fall, football season was going on, and he said, "Hey, I've got a lunch. You need to come with me. You'd enjoy it." So I get in the truck with him. We go to Outback, which those Red Raiders in the room know what lunch used to take place at Outback. And it's where all the fanatics show up, and they're trending towards the crazy, but they're fanatics, they're devoted Red Raiders. And Coach Tommy McVeigh comes down once a week and has been doing that for 20 some odd years to speak, but to really address any questions and concerns that come up. And that never happens. Nobody ever asks any questions or anything. But we're sitting there, and it didn't take me too long before the film starts rolling and Coach Tommy starts going through a few things, and hands start flying and comments start flying. And they had lost the week before. Quarterback played questionably. And it took me no time to realize that people were going to voice their opinion, and that was the environment that I was sitting in. This is what that was for, is so that the fanatics, those trending towards crazy, could voice their opinion and offer up their 2 cents. Man, it was brutal. I'm telling you what, I felt bad for this guy. He wasn't there, but I just felt bad knowing that this actually took place. And in no time, you would have thought these guys, they wanted this kid cut. They wanted his family to disown him. They wanted him held legally responsible for what had happened on Saturday. It was awful. It was terrible. I was shocked. And we walk out there, and I get in the parking lot, and I look at the gentleman who took me, and I said, "You got to be kidding me." Now it makes sense. This is where all of you people gather every week to talk about me when I was playing. Now I've got faces to put together. Now this makes sense. I got it. This is interesting. I'll keep this in mind. And it's funny because I still find myself at those deals every once in a while now, and some of those same faces are still sitting around there. And I know some of those folks were talking about me that way, but that's okay. You gotta have thick skin, without a doubt. But people, it's funny. I learned from that, and I learned through college, and I learned getting into business world, professional life, that people are not going to hesitate to tell you what they don't like. Very reserved, very hesitant to tell you what they approve of. But for some odd reason, we take every opportunity we can to voice everything we don't like about a situation or someone's behavior or a characteristic about someone. And it translates over to friendships. We see it through business life and through professional dealings, and we see it in our marriages, men. And I'm speaking to you because I'm calling out myself as well. Those kind of habits translate into our marriages, where the first thing we want to say, or first thing that comes to mind, or first thing we offer up, is a negative critique to our wife or to our spouse. And why is it that we can't resonate and focus on the things that are uplifting and encouraging? Rather, we go straight to what is on the other side of that spectrum. And it's a charge mainly to men that you have the power to lift up your wife more than anybody else does. And that's a lesson that I'm actively learning in a young as a young man and in a young marriage, we've been married 7 years, and you think I would have probably figured it out by now. But I look at folks a lot older than me, and they're still no clue, so I guess there's no hope. But there's always something to work towards. But I'm learning that to be the case every single day, that we've got the ability to kind of make or break a spouse's day. And so why don't we take every opportunity we can to make an impact in the right direction rather than trying to break somebody down? Again, a note on thick skin. That's something I learned, and it was a lesson I had to learn really quickly when I moved to Lubbock. Coming out of Abilene, played for a team and for a group of guys, and we kind of lived in a bubble there for a while where we were having a lot of success in sports. Abilene was it's right in the heart of the Bible Belt, so there's hardly any conflicts going on. You had an entire town and city behind your back. You get to Lubbock and you get into some of these crazies, right, for college football, and you realize quick that not everybody's on your side and everybody's got your back, so you've got to develop some thick skin really quick or you're not going to make it. That's when I really started having to lean on and understand and really have to bring to the forefront of my attitude and what I believed, something that I was raised on, and I thank my mom for this really more than anyone, because anytime I left the house as a kid, anytime I left for a ball game, if I was going on a date, if I was going to hang out with friends, whatever the occasion, my mom would always say, remember who you are and whose you are. Probably one of the most impactful statements that I've ever carried with me in my young life, and something that I'm finding has more and more meaning as I get older and older. And that's kind of redefining constantly who I am and who that person is going to be that I carry each and every day when I walk out of the door. And now it translates more to business than it does anything, but it also represents itself in my family, in my marriage, but again, most importantly, and as I'm seeing more frequently in business. Understanding and being able to confidently walk in the understanding of who you are, knowing who that person is, who you are, and whose you are. For me, I fully believe that I was fearfully and wonderfully made, created by a God in charge of the entire universe. I believe that. I walk confidently in that every single day, knowing that when I walk out of the door, I have a purpose, I serve a purpose, because I'm serving a bigger God, a God that's bigger than I can even comprehend or believe in. And I find comfort in that. I totally believe that. That has grown, certainly, as I've become older. But that's something I really had to lean on in times of difficulty. Heck, I mean, I'm looking at a room full of Aggies, and I remember not too long ago, we were playing A&M in Lubbock. I throw an interception right before halftime to swing the game, and 55,000 people minus 4 were booing me like crazy. So I've been in hostile environments. There's not much anybody in this room can say or do to really get under my skin. But I really thank my parents for that foundation that was built in me from an early age to know confidently, no matter the situation, the environment, good or bad, being able to rest in knowing who you are and whose you are. It's probably one of the most impactful things that I've carried with me and that I'm continuing to learn from as I get older. And as that understanding grows, for me, as that understanding continues to grow, is more of who I am, who am I going to be, who do others see me as, rather than trying to tell me who I am. As I become more and more confident in what that is and how that applies to my life, I start to see the circle shrink, and the cheerleaders start going away in your life. Because who you are begins to translate into a different life. You start to become and live out who you are, who you actually believe you are. If it's very surface level and you don't have a firm understanding of who that is, you're going to be changing as the wind changes directions out here. Are you a man who is left up to believe and to the shallow understanding and without knowing who you are, that you're convinced or the tide changes with what people say and think about you? Are you that kind of man, or are you a man of steadfast foundation that regardless of the circumstance, you're not moving? You're not being changed because you're confident in what you carry around. So be careful, because the circle shrinks. And a lot of you veterans in the room, let's call it, understand that way more so than I do. but it's something I'm beginning to learn quickly, that circle starts shrinking very rapidly. So with that, it's interesting. That's as deep as it's going to get. So I got on a soapbox a little bit, and I'm way over time, but whatever. We got plenty of time. It's funny. People love for me to know that they know something about something that I know. Does that make sense? So people come up and ask me all the time, hey, what do you think about Cliff? I mean, I've got a whole laundry list of things I think people would be interested in me asking or answering. And people just love for me to know that they know something I know about. That's probably the best way to say it. They kind of open the door for themselves to step through and make sure that I'm fully aware that they're in tune with football, college football, maybe some details about college football. Probably one of the most questions I get asked the most frequently is, do I miss it? And I've realized in the last year what I miss. People say locker room, people say traveling, road games, all that kind of thing. What I miss the most is that pressure. The pressure during a game, the pressure from a coach, the constant, because a coach is different. Unlike a boss, unlike a spouse, the coach is constantly pressuring you because they see something in you that you probably oftentimes don't see. So you've constantly got this pressure from a coach because they're desperately wanting to get the most out of you. That's what I miss. You've got somebody definitely on your side fighting the same battle that you're fighting. And you've got somebody who's trying to pull out every ounce of potential that you have. That type of pressure that's constantly on you, no matter the situation, that's what I miss about football, college football, sports in general, is that constant pressure from a coach. You probably understand what I'm talking about, Coach. Cliff Kingsbury, is he going to do well? He's going to do great because I'm not going to speak for him, but I don't think Cliff's the kind of guy that wants to go, he wants to show up to work, watch 14 hours of film, work out for a few hours, watch about 15 more hours of film, take a nap, wake up, do it all over again. That's a great formula for the NFL. There's a few more caveats to that in college football that you can't miss out on. I'm not going to go through the rest of these because I'm taking up too much of Coach's time. The other one is, why do people hate the greatest in the sport? I'll leave that with you a little bit, but why do people hate the greatest? I don't understand it. Why do people hate Tom Brady? I understand. He's the greatest. I mean, if you're trying to be a great football player, isn't he who you're aspiring to be? And me and my friends, we've kind of resulted to knowing that, all right, if you hate Tom Brady, you realize at some point, way before I did, that you're never going to get there, so you just resulted to hating him. You know, I still think in my screwed up head that I can still be or probably exceed what Tom Brady is. So that's just problem with me. But that date I left you with, let me tell you what that means to me and my family. December 21st, 2014, 8 o'clock in the morning. For you Red Raiders in the room, you'll enjoy this. That was the day that hundreds of pounds of dynamite were ignited at Kyle Field, and Kyle Field came. Okay, so that's my father-in-law's greatest memory of as being a Red Raider is the day that Kyle Field was imploded. So with that, I want to please hold. I'm going to read a couple things. This man needs no introduction by any means. Let me find my notes here. But let me give you a couple highlights for Coach. Kyle, I can't find my notes here. There we go. Again, hold your hollers, your yells, your claps, your yips, and your thumbs up till I introduce him, till he walks up here. But RC's the winningest coach in Texas A&M history, leading the Aggies to a 123-47-2 record from 89 to 2002. That's incredible. 14-year head coaching career. Coach Slocum never had a losing season and won 4 conference championships, including a Big 12 title in 98. Under Coach Slocum, the Aggies became the first program in the Southwest Conference in the history to post 3 consecutive perfect conference seasons, including 4 years without a losing Southwest Conference game and the highest winning percentage in Southwest Conference history. He was inducted in the College Football Hall of Fame in 2012, recently named to the BCS Bowl Committee and serving as a voting member on the BCS Bowl Selection Committee from 2019 to 2021. Today, Coach Slocum shares time between College Station, where he's still involved with the school and the university, and spends time at his ranch near Milano, Texas. It's my pleasure, it's my honor, and please give me a warm West Texas welcome for Coach Slocum. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Taylor. I appreciate those comments, and that's pretty nice coming from a Red Raider for an old Aggie coach. I told someone earlier out there, a couple of years ago, I was coming out here to visit, and I stopped in San Angelo there at Zentner's, which I'm sure many of you have been to over the years. And Jerry, the guy that runs it's a Red Raider. So I'm in there, and oh, Coach, man, so glad I went for years. I went to that high school coaching clinic they have every year there, and I probably went to it for 30 years. Man, oh, Coach, man, we're so glad to have you here. And I was saying, it's great. So we had a great meal. I get ready to leave. He tells me, he said, Coach, I'm a Red Raider, but I have to tell you, I've always really respected you and admired you. And, in my book, you're right up there close to Spike Dykes. So I went out in the parking lot and I called Spike. I said, man, I just got the best compliment you could ever get out in West Texas. He said, what are you talking about? I said, well, I went into Zentner's, and Jerry Casey, yeah, I know Jerry. I said, I know you do. He said, he just told me that he really respected me and I was up there close to Spike Dykes. So anyway, it's fun to be out here and share with you my faith. And I want to make it clear right up front, I'm not a preacher or anything close to being a preacher. I'm just another sinner, saved by grace, and I'm happy to share my faith with you today and hope that somebody, one person here, might be encouraged by my story. I've come to Midland several times over the last couple of years. My son, John Harvey, lives here, and my stepson, Randy, where's Randy? John Harvey's here, Randy's here somewhere. There he is back in the back. He works here now. So I've been out here several times over the last couple of years, and have really, really enjoyed it. It just so happened when I came out here 2 times, I think, to visit John, and it was the day of his men's Bible study here at the church. And so I went there, and 10 or 12 guys or something meet there early in the morning before work, and I thought that was really a neat deal to start your day off in a positive way. And so I went to that a couple times. So not long ago, John called and said, Dad, would you come out and speak to our men's Bible study? We want to have a little luncheon there. I said, yeah, I'd be glad to do that. And so then later on, he called and told me that a couple of friends of mine, Joe Wright, who's here today, and Tim Leach, said, hey, they would underwrite the luncheon. Just come on out. So I really appreciate Joe. Joe's here somewhere. I saw him earlier, right back here, and really nice of y'all to do that. And so I came out, agreed to come out here and did this thing, and I want to thank them for doing it. My agreeing to speak about my faith is part of an unanswered prayer from years ago, and I'll tell you about that later on. First of all, I grew up in southeast Texas in Orange, and lived in a very poor area of Orange for years. There's a place down there, and it's no longer there, but it's called Riverside Housing Edition. It was a low-rent housing deal with just rows and rows of duplexes. And so I lived out there, and most people looking at us would consider that we were poor. And I never thought too much about it. I was a paper boy and scrambling around, shining shoes, trying to figure out a way to get out of Riverside. But I was given at that time, and Taylor mentioned this with his family, I was given something of great value. And it was the best thing that ever happened to me in my life. And that was I grew up, was raised in a strong Christian family. And that is the best thing my family could have ever given to me. And I'll say to you, for your kids and grandkids, that's the best thing that you'll ever give them. And it was one of those things that it gave me a conscience as a child and a young man. And it was that thing of a strong sense of what was right and what was wrong. Doesn't mean I always did what was right, but when I didn't, that little still small voice is saying, yeah, you shouldn't be doing that. You shouldn't be here. You know that's not right. And so, in a way, it gave me a compass that helped me navigate life. And I think it's a huge problem in our country right now that so many of our young people have no sense of right and wrong. They have no compass. They've not been given that. And for me, it was great for me going through college, my early years as a coach. It was something that really, I think, helped me. It gave me a way to deal with the ups and downs and challenges that we each have come to our lives. In 1977, my youngest son, John Harvey, who's here, was born with a really serious, complicated heart problem. In medical terms, it was a complete transposition of the great vessels, a pulmonary stenosis, and a ventricular septal defect. It was one that right from the start would require open heart surgery. The question was, when would that need to be done, or when could it be done? The longer we waited, or could wait, the better his chances for survival would be. It was a day-by-day, week-by-week thing. If we could make it 6 months, then if we could make it a year, and then if we could make it till he started school. So we went through that, and we traveled from College Station to Houston to Texas Children's for regular checkups, and these things were all-day ordeals, going from this place to this place to this place and getting these different checks. We did that for 22 years. Until the time came when they said, it's got to be done soon. So we set up the surgery. I don't know how I could have faced that or lived through that and been productive without my faith. It was a time that I don't know how we could have survived that. I came to the conclusion, I did this pretty early on, when I found out 2 days, when he was 2 days old. It was just one of those things that just we were right in the middle of recruiting season, and it just hangs there. So I came to the conclusion in my mind that I would not have him unless the good Lord intended me for having him, and I would only have him for as long as he intended for me to have him. And I think every parent faces that reality. You may not address it, may not think of it in that way, but really all those kids are blessings. And there are a lot of different things that can happen to kids. So you got to love them while you have them and do the best you can and realize they're a gift from God. So I had that was the only thing that kind of gave me a little bit of peace of mind to say, I just put him in the Lord's hands, said, he's yours, take care of him, I'll love him, and I'll do whatever I can do. I did do a whole lot of things early, thinking in my mind, I may never get to do this with him, so I'm going to do it while I can now. And so I had those same thoughts. When we go into the operating room early one morning, I stayed in the hospital. I slept in his room with him the night before the surgery. And he slept pretty good, actually, but I didn't sleep a wink. I did a whole lot of thinking and praying and committing and whatever that night. But anyway, next morning, I go in there and tell him I love him, and they wheel him off in that deal. And I know that I've been told that there's a chance he may not come back out of this deal. Incidentally, one of the positive things, his surgeon was a guy named Dr. Charles Frazier. Some of you may know him. He grew up here in Midland. But anyway, thankfully, the surgery was a success, and a few weeks ago, we celebrated his 42nd birthday. A few years back, we go to Scotland to play golf in a father-son golf tournament. And I can't tell you, getting up every morning over there and said, man, thank you, Lord. Thank you. I never went through all those years never knowing if that time would ever be possible. But so, I didn't worry about the bad golf that I was playing. But I'm just so thankful for that blessing to be there and being able to be there with John Harvey. So over the years, his heart condition actually, I think, was a positive thing and gave me some stability and balance in my life. I never got too carried away with the highs of coaching, and I never despaired too much over the lows. And interesting story, one time we played Texas in Austin, and with 5 seconds to go, they kicked a 39-yard field goal to beat us by 2 points. And, I was as disappointed as you can be, but I went back and, that's the nature of the game, the business I was in. Next week, I get a really nasty letter from an Aggie in Austin. And he said, I stayed up all night. I couldn't sleep after that game. And he wrote me this really, really bad letter. It was a heck of a ball game. We just came up short. But anyway, I wrote him back, and I thanked him for caring enough about the program to write. But I said, you know what? I need to tell you something. If you stayed up all night over the outcome of a football game, you better hope you never have any real problems. And so anyway, I never heard back from him, so I don't know if that helped or hurt. But anyway, now I'd like to tell you a little more about that answered prayer that I mentioned earlier and why I'm speaking here today. So in 1989, actually 88, December 88, I was named the head coach at A&M. And man, I was so excited. I'd been a long-time assistant. I'd been at A&M, went to Southern Cal, came back to A&M, and then was named the head coach. And I was excited about that opportunity, and I felt like I was well prepared. But I wanted it to be something good. I wanted it to be something special. So the following week, I called the pastor of my church there during the week, and I said, I got a request for you. Would there be any way at the conclusion of the service, could I come down front, in front of the church, and get you and the church to pray for me that I would use this job, first of all, we'd do things in the right way and be an honest program and do things that would bring credit to the Lord's kingdom and just be something that would be honorable. And so he agreed to do that. And so I went down, did that, and we got off to a good start. I think the Lord heard that prayer, and we went on. My opening game was against LSU. They were number 7th ranked team in the country, and A&M hadn't beaten them in a while. We play them in Kyle Field. So I go out there, I'm all fired up. First game as a head coach and everything. They kick off to us. We run it all the way back for a touchdown. And we never looked back. We went on and won that game. We won a bunch more after that. So in short time, we were in the Cotton Bowl. A year or 2 years later, we're in the Cotton Bowl as champions. And we're going to play Florida State. So after we were named to play in Dallas, I got a call from Dr. Charles Criswell, the pastor of First Baptist Church in Dallas. He said, Coach, I see where your team's coming up here, and I want to invite you to speak to our Sunday morning service. So I said, well, I'm not sure what my schedule is right now. I want to get back to you. I said, man, here I am. I'm not, this is early in my head coaching career. I said, man, I don't know about getting up there in front of the church on Sunday morning speaking at, So anyway, I said, I'll call you back. He mentioned that Bobby Bowden, the Florida State coach, that he had called him too. So I called Bobby and I said, Bobby, that preacher called you from Dallas? He said, yeah, he did. I said, he talked to you about speaking? He said, yeah. I said, you going to do it? He said, yeah, I'm going to do it. And I said, man, I guess I'll do it too. I'm a little nervous about getting up in front of all those people and, and everything. And he said, well, let me tell you. He said, when I was a young coach, I went through the same thing. And he said, my pastor asked me to speak at my church on Sunday morning and go through my whole faith and beliefs and all of that. And he said, and I told the preacher, I don't know. I don't know if I'm good enough to do that, And he said, Bobby, what are you going to wait till you become perfect? He said, if you do, you're not going to ever be good enough to get up and talk. He said, you're not going to ever be perfect. So if you don't do that, so anyway, long story short, Bobby told me, he said, I got up and did it, and I've done it many times since then. And just tried to use whatever influence I had to make a difference and to encourage other people. So I spoke, and I felt that in the back of my mind, I said, the Lord, he's done his part now. We're good enough. We're the champions. We're in the Cotton Bowl now. I'm kind of a little bit trying to renege on my part. So anyway, I said, I'm going to do it. So I've done it many times since then. And me being here today, I'm still trying to fulfill I'm here, as Taylor mentioned, he blessed my career. I'm in the College Football Hall of Fame. So I'm still trying to carry out my end of the deal. And so the comments that, when I was a coach, I tried to be an influence on my staff. One of the things I'm really proud of, we never had a Sunday morning staff meeting when I was coaching. And of course, you play on Saturday, sometimes Saturday night late, you're anxious to see the tape. And I said, if you want to come in early Sunday morning and watch the tape on your own, that's fine. but we're not going to have a staff meeting because I don't want to be responsible for you not getting up and taking your family to church on Sunday morning. When it comes time to face the big coach upstairs, I don't want him to say, how come you didn't let your coaches go to church on Sunday morning and take their families? So I didn't want to have to answer it. I said, so you may not go, that's your choice, but it's not going to be on me if you don't. And so we never did that. Another thing, on every game that I coached as a head coach, home or away, we had a team devotion. And if we were on the road, we'd find a local speaker, Christian speaker, to come in and just talk about I thought some of those kids had never heard the word, and I wanted to, drip by drip by drip, I wanted to, over a 4-year period, I wanted to give them a little background. And I'd tell them, we'd do it on game day, and I'd say, this game's important, and we need to win this game. And it's biblical to go out and play so as to win the game. That's all biblical. But there's something that's more important than football in your life, and I want you to be aware of it. So we'd always, and I went through every single one. I sat on the front row. Every game I coached as a head coach, I was at devotion. One of the good things I did, I was on a plane. I think, again, it was God's working his ways that he does. I was on a plane flying back to College Station. I had a guy next to me, a black gentleman. I get to talking to him, and really he was a speech communications professor named Dr. Rick Rigsby. And I get to talking to him. I said, I have this burden. I said, we can teach cover 2, we can teach man technique, we can do all that. But what I want to do is teach life skills. How do you live life? And so we talked, and I was so impressed with him. I said, let's get together and have lunch next week. So I had lunch with him, and I was even more impressed. So I created a position. And I think we were one of the first ones, you hear it all the time now, but the life skills, I think we were one of the first ones to use that term. But I hired Rick, and he was so good to me. And you can Google him, and if you want to hear some great sermons, great speeches, Dr. Rick Rigsby, R-I-G-S-B-Y. He lives in Dallas now, speeches all over. But he was so great to our team and such a great mentor for our players. So we were trying to do the right things with them, and I've realized that in doing that, I've always thought about, with the players, I wanted them to know I was a believer. And I was not going to teach them how to cheat. I was going to try to teach them how to do the right things. We were going to do things the right way. I made it a point, we didn't do things like everybody else. So there are some others that did things a little different than us. But our team was special. I talked to them a lot about the name on the jersey, Texas A&M on the front. You're out there, you're representing all the guys that played before. And we didn't, incidentally, and this is not a negative on anybody, we didn't change jerseys every week. We had an A&M jersey, and we had an A&M helmet. That's what we wore. And I didn't let the marketing people from Nike or somebody come in and change my uniform every week. I said, you're trying to honor all those guys that's worn that uniform before you. You got Texas A&M on the front. And on the back is your name, which is really important. Now, some of you I know have not been given a great name or a name with great meaning. But you know what you're doing right now? You're giving meaning to the name that you're going to give to your son and your daughter. And it's important. Everything you do, on the field, off the field, whatever you do, you're making that name back there mean something. It's either good or bad. And so we talked about those kinds of things a lot. Our team was special. And so I would say to you today, and as a group of Christian men, I admire you being here today. And Christians don't do things like everybody else either. And so we're on a special team. And I've often thought how being on my team and being on the Lord's team were similar, and in some ways they're different. So I want to cover a few of those things with you. The first glaring dissimilarity was with the head coach. I took great pride in working and trying to be good and trying to have good game plans and try to call the right plays, but invariably at times I did call the wrong play. Some of the Aggies in the crowd say, yeah, Coach, I remember some of those. But anyway, I did. I couldn't help it. That's just part of the deal. But on the Lord's team, that never happens. If we'll just listen to what he tells us, he'll always call the right plays in our life. Proverbs 3, 5, 6, we're told, Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not unto your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will direct your ways. He has never called a bad play. He's an awesome head coach. I don't know how many of you have been to New York and ever been to the Rockettes Christmas Spectacular show up there. And it's kind of interesting. New York, you might see a lot of things. A lot of shows in New York I wouldn't go see. But that show is really a wholesome, if you're ever up there to take your kids, your wife, it's really a neat deal. I've been now 2 or 3, 4 times maybe. But anyway, at one point in there, this is during the Christmas seasons when I've been there, they've got a manger scene. And in that manger scene, it's one of the neatest things. There's a big booming voice, kind of like that guy that used to do the NFL films, you know. And he says, the lights focused on the little manger there and the baby Jesus. No king, no emperor, no general, no ruler. No one will have the influence this child will have on the world. He's our head coach, and he's undefeated. So another dissimilarity is how the team's put together, the recruiting process. You know, I spent a bunch of time. I drive out here, drive all over, fly in and out of here, recruiting, watching tapes, having summer camps, trying to evaluate so we could pick the best guys to offer scholarships to. We can only have 85 total on our team. And the athletic department, through our 12-man, we had to raise the money for those scholarships. So you had a limited number of guys. The Lord's team is quite a bit different. First of all, there's no limits on how many are on the team. And the second part, which is good for a whole lot of you in this audience, and for me, your ability doesn't matter. He takes you in spite of your ability and regardless of your ability. And your scholarship is already paid for. He paid for it. He personally and permanently endowed scholarships for everyone that wants to join the team. On my team, sometimes I had to demote players or take them off the field. Some cases they were beaten out by a better player, and sometimes they just didn't give enough effort. That doesn't happen on the Lord's team. One of the great assurances that we have is no matter how many mistakes we make or how poorly we play, he still loves us and he'll keep working with us if we'll just keep trying. Okay, now for some similarities. On my team, the weight room was really important. Players had to work to get stronger if they wanted to play well and avoid injuries. Also, they had to watch carefully what they ate and what they put in their bodies. They had to have good nutrition if they wanted to grow. And I'm really pleased now on campus we have the R.C. Slocum Nutrition Center. Kids on campus call it the Slocum. And it's the best place on campus to eat down there. But it's where our athletes eat. We have a full-time nutritionist that works with athletes. It's been proven many times that what you put in your body is very important. The same is true for Christians. How many of you have heard the GIGO theory? I spoke at A&M graduation a few years back. I said, y'all a bunch of smart kids. You've got great education now. How many of you know the GIGO theory? Let me see your hand. Wasn't anybody in the room. GIGO, garbage in, garbage out. Good in, good out. That's how your mind's computer works. You have to put good nutrition in your spiritual body if you're going to grow. That's what you're doing when you go to your men's Bible study, and hopefully there might be a little tidbit of here today that you get from hearing Taylor speak and hearing me speak. You might pick up some little something that might help you. It's important that you put good thoughts in your mind's computer. That's why the little Bible study, I came to your Bible study. What a great thing to start your day off, putting good thoughts in your clean, wholesome thoughts in your mind's computer. And that will determine what you get out. And we're under attack like never before. When you turn on the TV, you turn on the radio, sometimes you're just shocked. I'm shocked at some of the language that now has become routine on television. You go to the grocery store to check out, they got those magazines. It's unbelievable what just the front cover of the magazines, what they say. And it's just bombarding you, putting trash in. So you've got to have a way to keep that out. In Proverbs, they tell us, we're told, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. So what you think about it is really important. From time to time, we get emails and got some off-colored kind of joke, or like you say, you're shopping at the store, and you got the magazine deal there, and they got some lady with no clothes, half no clothes on, or some big lewd kind of a comment on there. So you have to guard against that. Now, scripture that I take with me all the time, every day, and I have to use it every day in some way. And it's this one. in Psalms 19:14. May the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be pleasing to you, O Lord, my strength and my Redeemer. So we all in that situation sometimes, you start thinking about this, or say, no, I'm not thinking about that. That's not, I'm not putting that in here because that's bad. And the same thing with what you say. Or am I making things better? Am I a good witness by the way I talk? Which means that it limits a lot of things that I can say. I can't be off telling some dirty, filthy joke and then say, that's not, to that person I'm telling it to or the people listening to, that's not good for them because I'm putting garbage in their computer. So I think that's something we have to be mindful of. Another similarity, I wanted my players to have enthusiasm and excitement and play hard. I said something, I don't care how much ability you have or lack of ability, one thing you can do, everybody can play hard. I go by sometime a high school coach. He said, well, we're not going to be very good this year because I lost 2 guys. And I said, hey, you know what? Till you get the guys you got playing hard, you're not going to ever be very good. You got to play hard. And I told my players, I grew up doing some fishing and hunting, and I said, it's kind of like, and it probably didn't relate to them as much as I had wanted it to, but I said, it's kind of like when you're a kid getting ready to go hunting or fishing. There's some things you have to do. You got to hitch the boat up to the truck. You got to put the guns in the truck. And she got work to do, but she said, you don't walk around and say, oh, God, we got to put gas in the motor. We got to do it. So, man, we're going fishing. That'll be exciting. And that's how I want them playing football. I want to say, man, we're excited. I don't want any long faces around here. We want to be excited. And I want them to trust that we could handle whatever the opponent had. We're prepared. We're ready. Let's go out there and throw our ball out there and see if we can win this thing. I think the Lord expects the same. You should not have to tell people that you're a Christian. They ought to be able to see it in your face and your smile and the way you do things. You shouldn't have to tell them. You should rise every day with a song in your heart, start each day being thankful. And I think it's one of the key deals. I go back to my family and my mother. We didn't have much in the way of material things. But, man, she talked all the time about getting up every day and thinking of all the things you have to be thankful for. And I started that habit early in my life and still have it. Just think of all the things you have to be thankful for. And that kind of is another good way to start your day off. Feel confident to face your day knowing he's always with you. He didn't promise us we wouldn't have problems, but did promise he'd be there to see us through the problems. In Isaiah 41:10, so do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I'll uphold you with my righteous hand. That's a comforting promise for whatever problems we might have. The next similarity is my team's always had a playbook, and they probably thought it was way too thick, but we covered every single situation. Training room, rules for travel, offense, defense, kicking game, even talking to the media. We talked about that and trained them in that. We gave it to them so they could be fully prepared for anything they would face. Likewise, on the Lord's team, we're given a playbook, the Bible. Now, how often, I don't want to see a show of hands, but how often do you study your playbook for life? How often do you get into it? It's very important. It's a guideline for every possible situation we might face in life. How to work, how to play, how to love, how to handle your friends, how to handle your enemies, how to deal with disappointment, how to deal with success, to handle your children, how to relate to your spouse. Nowadays, these rules are easy to find too. It's really neat. You can get on a computer right now. If you just type in working hard, Bible, working hard, it'll come back and give you all the deals about working hard. Or put in Bible, dealing with disappointment, and you'll give you a whole scripture deal, a bunch of scriptures to teach you how to do that. Or any other question you might have, it's so easy to get your answers from your playbook now. And as I told my players, to be the best that you can be, you've got to study that playbook. And I'd say that to you men here today. The last similarity that I'll mention in closing is that of rewards. Each season we worked hard. We said, at the end of the year, they're going to either come get everybody or they're going to leave everybody at home. And we'll be home watching somebody else in the bowl game. Or we will work together in such a way that we win enough games, we'll get a chance to go to a bowl game, we'll get a championship ring. And so you work You talked about those rewards of being the champion and going to a bowl and getting the bowl rings and bowl watches. And those were all great. And it signified a good season, that we had done things the right way. Likewise, on the Lord's team, first of all, we have his help throughout the seasons of our life in dealing with the challenges in the game of life that we all face. And when we get to the end of our season, if we follow the game plan that he's given us, we're rewarded with eternal life. In John 11:26, we're promised, everyone who lives in me and believes in me will never die. So we go through this life, a lot of time you're kind of conditioned a little bit of, like death, and we're around it. I got to go to San Antonio tomorrow for a dear friend, Aggie, that passed away. And so we're around death all the time, but the great promise that we have as Christians, it's just a short little time we're here. We've got eternal life if we followed the game plan and followed the promise, claimed the promise that's there for us. So anyway, I've enjoyed being with you. I hope that you'll play this game. We're all in it. We're all in it. We have good plays and bad plays. But if you just stay in the game and keep playing, we're all promised that we'll get the reward at the end. And I would encourage you to live your life in such a way that you won't have to tell people that you're a Christian. They'll know it. Thank you. God bless Midland and you guys, and have to say, Taylor, gig 'em Aggies.
I feel like I have this perpetual smile on my face. What a gift the last hour and a half has been together. I've been blessed to be a part of the household of faith of the family of God nearly all of my life. And I have a few big things that have happened that, when I sum up my life, were really spiritual landmarks. Several months ago, one took place, and it was when Coach Slocum joined John Harvey in our small group, and we were talking about seasons in our lives. And some of you have been through Authentic Manhood, the studies that we have here at Stonegate, and you know which one I'm talking about. And it talks about different ages and times in our lives, and some are in the first quarter of their lives, and some are about halftime, and some of us are in the third quarter, or perhaps even in the fourth quarter of our lives. And Coach Slocum was sitting there, and he, in his coach's voice, shared wisdom and it's become one of the highlights, and I would love to close with, he said, Kyle, some of us are in the fourth quarter. No, really, some of us are in overtime. And it really doesn't matter where you are. He says, it's been my experience that most of the big games, the big wins we've had were decided in the fourth quarter or overtime. So stay encouraged wherever you are in life, whatever quarter you're in, not season today, but whatever quarter we're in, be encouraged with those words from probably one of the greatest coaches of our day. Thank you so much for being here today. You are loved. We'll see you again next Wednesday morning at 6:30. Coffee will be ready early. Come early and we'll enjoy our time together. Thank you so much. Have a great afternoon.